I must say that the first reflection that comes to me, Durga, is the examples you're stating are fairly matured and really good to see. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Dialogue with Darwin. And I'm told that this is the 32nd episode that we are recording in all these years. It's been an interesting series where we delve into the future of HR while also looking into the evolution of HR that has happened over the years in conversation with some of the best leaders from the industry. And on that note, today I'm super excited about hosting Mr. Durga Prasanna, the head of HR at Aster DM Healthcare India. Mr. Durga comes with 2 decades of experience that spans across two of the most unique and essential sectors, in my view, education and healthcare. And I'm excited about tapping into his experience and insights pertinent to talent development, skilling, strategy, and HR vision. Some areas that Mr. Durga is extremely well versed at across his years of experience. Thank you so much, Durga, for joining us today. I'm excited about our conversation.
Thanks, Gautami. It's been a pleasure, and I look forward to this discussion ahead.
Thank you. Thank you. On the note of, where I was saying your 2 decades of experience across education and healthcare, let me jump into and, satisfy my curiosity about the healthcare industry. It's a round the clock job, right? Majority of your workforce might be on round the clock shifts. A lot more unpredictability is natural to the sector. In such a scenario, how do you kind of balance out employee experience or employee well-being for that fact? Or in fact, how do you build a culture when there is an organization that is working in such around the clock nature?
So yeah, Gautami, yes, no, you have said it very right. We have a very diverse ecosystem of talent. On one end, you have clinicians, you have nurses and paramedics who actually form the backbone of the healthcare ecosystem, and then you need all the enabled and support services, talent, like all the support services of quality, human resource. It could be IT functions, legal, marketing, and all the functions that go on supporting the entire ecosystem of giving services to the most needy patients. So yes, what is important to note here is when we talk of experience and engagement, the experience and the lookout of each of these cohorts is very, very different.
It's such a round the clock job, very diverse workforce, very distributed workforce. How do you build a culture in such a backdrop? What does HR do to in fact drive like a unified culture in such a backdrop?
Yeah. So Gautami, I think culture is a very ongoing thing. It's I always feel there is no right culture or wrong culture. It's all about aligned or misaligned culture, and it all flows from the top, right? Once you define the strategic style of the business, and for us as healthcare, we need to be very very close to our patients. So it's all about patient intimacy as a core strategic style, and of course we have to keep operational excellence in mind to ensure that we have the right levers pulled in for business efficiencies and all. Having said that, the building a culture of excellence is a continuous process which needs leadership and MSN-driven culture, where the mission of delivering high quality healthcare to patients is absolutely paramount. And in this context, what is very very important to notice the leadership commitment, visible commitment of leadership who walk the talk, and they should mean it. That mean the operational excellence and employee well-being is of paramount importance. In this regard, we have a few measures taken in around psychological safety, team collaboration, diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's very important today that healthcare workers feel heard. They're able to express themselves. They're able to navigate through the ethical dilemmas that come across in day-to-day servicing of patients. And team collaboration, as I mentioned, very important because interdisciplinary support is very, very important to reach, achieve the fundamental goals what the business or the organization is striving to achieve. And as I mentioned, diversity, equity, inclusion, and belongingness is of paramount importance. They add perspectives when we look at the same a scenario, and it also helps in bringing a lot of innovation. Having said that, as an organization, to build a culture which is appreciated, that's wide reaching, and which is progressive, meeting the needs of all the stakeholders across the spectrum. We have very good optimization practices in terms of giving people the desired shifts, minimizing the workloads, ensuring they have adequate rest and intervals, and the good reward and recognition programs, again, tailor-made to the different cohorts. As I said, a clinician would have very, very different aspirations from a nurse, and a outsourced worker, for example, who is working in housekeeping or security services, his needs, aspirations, and requirements will be very, very different. So we have tailored reward system, and gone are the days when you have rigidity in terms of timings, work policies, and things like that. I think all of us have seen a shift from the conventional practices to workplaces, and workforce. All of them have undergone a significant shift, especially in light of COVID and the trending times ahead. And it's very, very important to convince employees, or give them the support during life events such as personal health crisis. It could be parental leave, it could be bereavement. And one of the best industry practices I have seen in current times is the gift of time. When you gift an employee or donate a part of your leave to somebody who is needy, so that they could avoid a loss of pay, or they could tide over the financial crisis. So to keep it short, I think building a culture, Gautami, would need support, and it would need a holistic support which threads, or which combines operational excellence and employee well-being in healthcare with a holistic and people-centric approach. So it's got to be bottoms up, it can't be top down.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Durga. It was so insightful to learn. And I think I was thinking, if the saying happy employees leads to happy customers is relevant and critical in any sector, I think it is healthcare, right? Like people coming to take medical services would want to be serviced by employees who are, who are in general engaged and feeling happier. There's no other sector where it is so critical. I'm okay for a retail employee to be disengaged and to be servicing me slightly, less happily than my medical practitioner servicing me. But what was really interesting for me to learn from what you shared, Durga, is you broke down the way to drive culture into, in fact, day-to-day policies, practices, shift flexibilities, R&R, the gift of time. I think that's the biggest takeaway for me, that this gets built bottom up by introducing all of these in a day-to-day operations, right? Culture has to mean something tangible also, that the employee experiences in their own day-to-day workplace, right? So that's really amazing to know. Thank you for sharing that. In fact, that was going to be my next question, but it's been insightful to learn that part. That I want to jump into, maybe another aspect that we keep seeing being very prominent in the healthcare industry is also upskilling. This is a sector where, of course, research is happening faster. Technology is being introduced to make sure there are better services being provided. And I'm assuming, and please feel free to correct me if that is not the case, I'm assuming skilling your employees is one of the major objectives, and scorecards that HR tracks. How do you tackle that? What's the primary approach there? And what do you wish to achieve in terms of upskilling employees?
So, Gautami, just let me relate the facts inside today. So, what has happened in current times? The Industrial Revolution 4.0, it has given rise to a lot of service sector jobs. And if you see, manufacturing jobs are on the decline, which means currently, what is it, the imperative? What is the impact it's having on businesses? You see, organization structures are getting flatter and flatter. You have more decentralizations coming into place. You have the role of managers is largely shifting from, they were earlier, managers were all up towards a promotion. They were playing a very pivotal role in upward movement of careers. But today, managers, they are more orchestrators of careers. And today, coming back to a question of upskilling, all these transitions, all these transformations with the advent of technology and trending times has shortened the shelf life of skills. So today, the half life of a skill has reduced by almost 50%, and more so for tech skills. So, a skill learned today, which was supposed to be probably relevant for 5 to 7 years of time, today gets redundant in 3 to 4 years, and more so for technical skills. And if you look at healthcare as an organization today, we have to pay a lot of attention, especially to our clinical workforce in terms of upskilling, especially the doctors and the nurses. Oh, and we have very good platforms in terms of continuous medical education for our clinicians, continuous nursing education for our nurses, and a lot of forces that go about supporting this transition of the clinical evolution of skills. And as an organization, we are very fortunate to have our own learning academy that caters to all the learning needs. Of course, goes by without saying that we have our own training need analysis, a learning calendar device for the year. And the Health Academy actually partners with all the hospitals in the ecosystem to drive programs around strategy, leadership, centers of excellence. Today, we have clinicians who think about being program directors, who think of being entrepreneurs, who take an interest in the learning business outcomes, financial matrices about cost, about returns, about margins, and a lot of financial parameters. So, as an organization, we promote a lot of flexibility in our system. Today, career growth is not just about titles, it's just not about designations or years of service. Today, as an organization, it's all about being skill as a currency. So, if you have skills, you will fly. We have a very niche program in our organization which is called Skill to Scale. If you have the desired skills, you will scale in the organization, you will fly higher in terms of scope, in terms of responsibilities. And today, coming back to skills, we have mapped competencies, overlapping competencies, and we always map what are the desired skills for today and for future. And the evolution of careers in the Aster ecosystem is not just climb the ladder. Today, across some cohorts, we see movements which is Y-shaped, two-dimensional growth. We have career lattices, we have career maps, we have career patterns. And of course, with trending times, I think a lot of tech organizations, a lot of IT-enabled services, startups today are beginning to move to a journey where careers are all about open markets. You start with something, you would end up something. It all depends on your interest levels and the organization to tap those interest levels and help you to upskill and aspire those, achieve those.
Huh? Absolutely, absolutely. Very interestingly said, Durga. And in fact, really nice to learn that there's such a clearly mapped out skills, competencies framework, and career lattices. And in fact, good to hear that maybe perceived traditional industry healthcare can be a perceived traditional industry, but talking about different trajectories of growth that are not just vertical growth is a very interesting insight for me to take away, that even traditional industries have, maybe I shouldn't call it traditional industry, it is evolving at a very rapid pace today, but still it's something that's existed for so long, right? And maybe everyone, at least from the outside, perceives that there are fixed roles and fixed growth paths there. But really interesting to learn that you've adapted to different career trajectories, enabling that kind of different kind of growth and making it very entrepreneurial within the organization is an interesting takeaway for me from this conversation. Thank you for sharing that. On that note, if I have to take it a step further and ask about how does succession planning look like, and what are some of those critical roles within healthcare where it makes sense to focus on building a succession bench, right? And how do you focus on that?
So I think our approach, Gautami, on this is very, very structured. So we have different levels of leadership. We have unit leadership, we have cluster leadership, we have business leadership, operational and enterprise-wide leadership. And I think this entire journey of succession planning needs to be mapped on competencies. So I was just mentioning about skill being a currency in the entire ecosystem of our organization. So it's very imperative to note where do you stand today and where do you aspire to move. So it's all about knowing where you want to go. On that note, we have developed a very robust competency framework in our ecosystem where we have well-defined technical as well as soft skills. And I think no, you must be knowing about the 9-box grid that's widely used across organizations. We do so. And all our talent and all our positions, so every position in the organization that adds disproportionate value to the organization is tagged as a niche position that contribute very, very disproportionately to business outcomes. These are critical roles. And once these roles are mapped, we try and map the talent to those roles in terms of competencies and skill sets. And ecosystem of our organization has a 3A framework where we call ability, agility, and aspiration. While most of the organizations speak about ability and agility, about the performance potential grit, we as an organization also look at aspiration. That's a very, very thing. Do you really, aspire, or does the talent really aspire to go where the organization intends him to go? That's simply said, does the talent have that fire in the belly to take up that aspiring role and position? And I think in terms of success and planning and growth, it's very important how you box the talent, how do you map the top performers, how do you communicate with them, how are the intervention measures planned in the organization. As an organization, our strategy is very, very straightforward and simple. We have a three-pronged strategy about people who are a little low on potential, maintain in them, because you can't have all horses in a team. That again will have its counter effects. People who are medium on potential, invest in them, and people are very high on potential, prioritize them. So this strategy of maintain, invest, and prioritize has paid dividends for us. And all the talents who look very, very promising, the high posts, they are communicated well in advance so that they add disproportionate value to the organization in terms of the value drivers. And we have well planned intervention measures in place to see that their growth and career aspirations are mapped to the business growth and long-term strategy of the organization.
No, absolutely. I must say that the first reflection that comes to me, Durga, is like, the examples you're stating are fairly matured and really good to see, uh, you know, maybe the top 10 percentile, 20 percentile of best practices being put to use. I like the three A's of Aster, the ability, agility, and aspiration. I know you said aspiration is not commonly found, but I felt in our experience, we've seen agility getting added to that suit only in the last 4 or 5 years, right? So Darwinbox's philosophy, in fact, was to build technology that helps organizations evolve faster, right? And maybe in 2015, it was not one of the biggest things that were being thought about. But post pandemic, I think agility to adapt is something that everyone's talking about. So good to see agility, one of our core values, also being like a critical succession strategy, right? And love the way you spoke about how there are different categories of folks that will need different kinds of approach, right? The maintain, invest, and prioritize. I think interesting takeaways definitely for the audience. Love to learn more. If I have to bring all of this conversation together, right? You spoke about policies, you spoke about day to day operations on how they can actually communicate a culture or even create an experience for an employee in terms of culture. You spoke about a lot of skilling programs in place and that having like a foundation of skills and competencies, right? It's not just broad based, but it's very structured on a clear foundation that clarifies what is needed for what role. With such great practices in place, how do you look at the role of technology to achieve all of these? Like, what is the role that technology is playing for you, or would you would like technology to play for you in enabling all of this vision that you have and the company has to do?
So, Gautami, I think technology has made unprecedented interventions and transformations, and all this is agnostic of today's sectors or businesses or the industry. And some of the disruptions, big time disruptions we see in businesses today is largely because of intervention of technology. Specifically, looking at our sector, healthcare, how we go about hiring talent today, and the talent practices of sourcing and acquisition that was about few years back. Today is very, very entirely different today. I know we have all this AI, enabled tools. We have chatbots. We have predictive analytics. We have scenario-based modeling and simulation, AI-powered recruitment, where today you don't have to really waste a lot of time into sourcing data, which is for the match of competencies and the JD. In fact, we call it success profiles. The profiles which are found to be of other positions who have delivered value to the organization, we match the competencies, the skills, the personal attributes. This all done essentially through intervention of technology and systems. And of course, I'm sure healthcare has got a diverse ecosystem, and about 40 to 50% of our workforce centers around nurses. So how do we ensure that their transactional time is reduced? People or the talent don't visit HR conventionally to check about wage, about pay slips, about holidays, about the compensatory offs and things like that. So technology can be leveraged. The introduction of AI and chatbots could actually leverage that, where a lot of transactional work gets translated into a lot of strategic time. That leaves HR with a lot of added time to do progressive work around building strategy, working closely with business on delivering value and outputs. And of course, powered scheduling, AI powered scheduling in terms of those offered by a lot of companies today. They help organizations like healthcare to optimize your shift patterns. They help organizations to ensure that there is no added overtime or there's reduced overtime and there's appropriate staffing for patient care. And today we have a lot of mobile scheduling apps that gives the convenience to healthcare workers to manage their shifts, swap their shifts, no, to HR or the admin to have visibility of some of the emerging patterns about workforce usage and where are the lean times, when are the peaks, when are the draws. So definitely it helps to have a very judgmental view, a decision based on data, shifts and patterns. How do you engage and how do you deploy your manpower? Right. So I think technology as a whole has been an enabler across the entire HR value chain, right from sourcing to development to career progression to employee engagement to mood surveys, centimeters, and pulse surveys, employee outcomes. The entire spectrum has today been leveraged with the advent of technology.
Thank you so much for that, Durga. In fact, the interesting thing that I would like to take away is we keep talking about technology being, smarter, and that's some of the examples that you were stating in terms of, hey, can I have a success profile? Can I have an AI bot that kind of makes it easier for people to get answers, etc. We also talk about technology being efficient, which is, can people get those answers quickly? Can they take lesser time to kind of do those shift changes, etc. But I think in healthcare, one thing that I take away is that the environment is so dynamic, right? And it's constantly like changing. I think technology has to play the role of still making sure there is coherence for all the roles who are trying to operate together, right? It might be that someone's changing their shift and there's a downstream implication of what that means elsewhere in an overtime calculation or in some other aspect of HR. And I think to kind of manage that dynamism is what is going to be extremely critical as well for tech in healthcare. That's one of the takeaways that I'm having. I'm curious to ask, are there challenges like while you're deploying some of the best succession practices, skills and competencies particularly, right? There are more and more organizations today who are very curious to build that kind of foundation. Would you like to share any challenge that you think they should watch out for, especially when it comes to adopting skills and competencies frameworks?
So I think the biggest challenge we have is it's an engine running. You are servicing patients 24/7. So that leaves organizations in the healthcare sector very little time to actually place resources, do job shifting, job rotation. Because you are addressing the needs of a patient 24/7. That's one of the biggest challenges we face. And of course, the healthcare sciences is rapidly evolving. So of course, we have AI, we have analytics, we have a lot of algorithms and tools. But then it's very important to have all these AI practices, applications leveraged into the healthcare ecosystem, but with a human in the loop. That's what we say. The constant monitoring is very, very important. Even if we have a success rate of, let's say, 98 or 99%, because its outcome is all about life, we have to be very mindful of outcomes. You even can't have a 1% error when we leverage technology on some of these aspects of the HR value chain. And of course, I think navigating through the diverse ecosystem, the needs and complexities of a clinician who is a brand by himself to a allied healthcare worker to a uh, nurse, and then connecting the dots with the aspirations of allied forces like a support function who works in the legal or a quality or a safety function. I think navigating the complexities of the aspirations is one of the challenges we see. But yes, having said that, technology has been a real enabler, and we see optimization across many of these drivers of the HR value chain with the advent of technology and interventions.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much for calling that out, Durga. I should say, it was really interesting taking that deep dive into healthcare and all the best practices one can adopt in healthcare. Let me switch over and get to know a little more about you personally, and not just all the serious business that you take care of, that I've learned about. So, if I have to ask you one thing that's changed about you from the time you started your career to now, what's that one thing that evolved about you, Durga?
So I think it's all about patience, and it's all about having the courage to speak up for the right thing. I think that's very, very important for the HR professional to be, in business, where you do what is right for business, which means it, takes the HR professional to be very assertive, to call out what is right, to call a spade a spade. So that's very, very important, and that has what has changed me as a human being to stand up and face that courage.
Okay. So you'd say you're a lot more patient now, and you're also a lot more transparent. Like you can be a lot more honest now.
Exactly.
Great, great. This, I mean, hypothetical. If there is a role outside of HR that you would like to give a shot at, what would that be?
Well, I think an influencer, and if at all I have to be remembered, even in HR or non-HR, it has to be a change agent, somebody who could make a difference to someone's life. I would like to be known as that.
Okay. Great, great. What is one word that would describe your leadership style?
Transformative,
Okay. One skill you believe HR professional should have, for sure, non-negotiable.
resilience.
Okay. I feel, by the way, that should be there for everybody. I think today's age, that's the best skill that anyone can kind of build. Uh, Fantastic. Thank you so much, Durga. It was very insightful and at the same time very interesting to learn about you and healthcare. We're going back a lot more informed about a sector that is very essential to all of us. Thank you for sharing your insights.
Thanks, Gautami, and the pleasure was entirely mine. Thank you for hosting me this.